Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CXR's eXpert Tease. I'm Chris White, president of Career Crossroads, and this is a special segment of our podcast where I grab about 10 minutes with an industry practitioner or a leader, and we get them to share just one thing with our listeners. Now, that one thing might be a lesson learned or a career hurdle or victory. There really are no rules outside of the idea that it should fall within categories that hundreds of talent acquisition leaders told us at CXR were important to their success or their leadership going forward. Now, that means we're typically talking about a range of topics spanning anything from employee wellness to diversity, equity, inclusion, to industry ethics, or any number of trending items in our space. If you're interested in weighing in on what's important moving forward in 2021, you can take part in our 2021 Priorities Benchmark Survey that is open to everyone, and it is actually found within the research and report section of cxr.works. Now, if you're attending live today, you can participate via the chat feature of our broadcast. Anyone should feel free to ask our guest a question or two. And if we've got the time, we'll make sure to try and answer them. If we don't have time, or you think of something later you'd like to ask, you can always join us in our open and free exchange found at cxr.work/talent talk. So with all of that, I'm pleased to introduce today's guest and a pretty fun topic. So with me is Jim D'Amico, who is the global head of talent at Celanese, and who for the last 4 years has been the board president for the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals. Jim, welcome to this expertise.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's always good to see you.
Agreed. So, it's good to see you as well. So.
Thanks. Jim, we've got a topic today that is actually, if I'm being really honest, is actually one I really used to enjoy getting into with leaders when we would travel live. This is a really great happy hour topic, I think, and I'm excited to chat you up about it. Obviously, the item being how we or people fall into recruiting as a profession and why that's okay, and then maybe a little bit of discussion around if we think there should be a better way to find recruiting rock stars, or if we're just fine the way it is.
So I'll answer the last question first. There has to be a better way, right? I mean, just this random falling in that we all go through seems a bit rough. And for me, it was a series of failures that led me to success. And I think that's often true for folks. But my background is really kind of different. So I started in the military. I was in the Army. I was certainly not the greatest soldier ever produced by the Army, and really thought I was much more of a lover than a fighter. So, after that, look, I figured I don't have a lot of skills, but I'm at least think I'm a little funny. So I got into stand-up comedy, and you've probably not seen me in many movies or Netflix specials because I also was not really good at that. And from there, I fell into sales, and from there is how I finally got into recruiting. Because, at some point you eventually have to have money to eat. If you want to go out on dates, the person you're taking out usually appreciates money. Busting out with those 2-for-1 coupons is never a great move. So, but as I look back, I learned so many great lessons from these different things. I mean, in the Army, again, although I was not a super soldier, I learned discipline. I learned tenacity. I learned about getting a job done and not quitting until it's done. In comedy, believe it or not, you learn so much about reading people and communicating with people. And as a student of Second City, I learned about cooperation and working as a team, and really, most importantly, not saying no. That was a huge lesson to me that all plays out now so well.
Jim, are you messing with me? So I'm just going to tell you this. I had no idea that was your path. Do you okay, you're blowing my mind. So I was in the Army. I got out of the Army and did stand up for a little while. I wasn't funny enough to pay the bills, so I had to get a real job. I got it in sales. And through being the worst manager in the world, my punishment was to restaff my store, and that's how I fell into recruiting.
So Chris, I think maybe we have identified the proper path.
You might just be my brother from another mother. Like I'm blown away right now. I had no idea we had such a similar path.
Me either. That is amazing. I mean, look, how many times have we talked before and things like that, and this never came up? That is crazy amazing.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, so I agree with you. Failure along the way makes for a better almost anything, right? Absolutely, almost anything. I'm still blown away. My head's spinning. So from a delivery standpoint, right, into recruiting, what's a big, like, what would be the biggest life lesson that you think you took with you into recruiting to make you a successful recruiting leader? And then part B of that, I guess, is how does that get replicated somewhere else versus, hey, everybody should go to school and study HR to be a recruiter?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson actually came from Second City for me. And that's the concept of improvisational comedy is based on the premise of agreement, right? Instead of saying no, you say yes and that's how you continue dialogue. And I think for so long in HR has been the no police, right? They're like, no. And that's not how you continue dialogue. That's not how you build consensus. That's not how you get to a solution. Yes, and is how you resolve that. And that simple lesson that you learned day one in that training has probably been the one thing that has served me the most in my career.
And do you think that transitions well into any career?
Absolutely. I think it struggles with HR because HR sometimes feels so programmed to say no, but we have to break that, right? Anybody that works for agreement and builds, a team that cooperates together is going to be successful. I think that when you look, and this is not a comedy bit here, but I think HR, we spend not enough time learning business. And I think when you look at business success, you see that that's where it comes from. So yeah, I think it's easily translatable. What?
There we go. Sorry, I had to unmute. I was trying not to sneeze and I muted myself, and
Okay.
Zoom doesn't let you unmute yourself. Sorry about that.
You were talking like my dad for a second. He's Italian.
It's just all hands.
I thought I was in trouble.
So it's kind of an interesting piece, right? Because we're talking about people that sort of fall in. How would you give this a real world application? Like if we're looking for recruiters as leaders, we're typically recruiting recruiters, right? But how does somebody nowadays, right? Because when you and I fell into recruiting, it was only just maybe the beginning of internet job postings, and just, we're still hovering over a fax machine, and no, we don't even say it anymore, right? So my question is, now, if you're not studying to be a recruiter, you don't have experience in it, how would we hire somebody? Are leaders still going to take a risk on someone who's coming out of sales into recruiting, and at what level?
Heck yeah. I mean, I think so, because if you look at the fundamentals of recruiting, it's honesty, it's energy, it's honesty, energy, and intelligence. And if you have those three things, then I think that you're going to be successful. We just have to be willing to understand that that's what we're looking for. I don't care what ATSs you've worked with. I don't care, what Boolean search strings you know how to write. If you have those three things, you can be successful. Those three things are foundational, I think, in basically any role. We just have to come to accept it and then take the responsibility of building on that as leaders for our teams. We don't hire somebody as plug and play. We have to take the time to build them and to nurture them to be really successful. We all fell into it, but hopefully when we fell into it, somebody took the time to do that for us. That's why we're still around this many years later.
Or we were just funny in the break room. We were just funny enough.
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said for folks of our generation who maybe fell into recruiting. I think there is an element of, and I've always been a fan of this, learning agility. So the ability,
Yes.
right? So it doesn't matter what system you've been in, but to be able to come in and learn as you go and quickly adopt. And I think that works for any industry, not just recruiting, right?
Absolutely. If you were in the Army, like people think we're taught rigid ways of doing things. You have to be agile, right? I mean, you just absolutely have to. There's the right way, the wrong way, and the Army way, and you need to know how to move between all three.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jim, let me ask you, on your recruiting team, how many
Yeah.
of your folks are have a background, if you had to guess, right? How many of your folks on your recruiting team, or even just your favorite recruiters, we won't just do your team, do you think have a background where they also fell into recruiting, not were a coordinator and became a recruiter, or were in HR and did a lateral move? Like, how many just fell out of the sky into recruiting?
Oh my gosh, almost all of them. There's very few people I know that have grown up in it, and part of it is because we haven't done a great job of creating a career path in it for folks. That's problematic, but also it's just I love these stories. I could sit around all day talking to people about how they fell into this because we all have these unique, amazing, wonderful paths that make each of us, who we are, and we all learn from each other's past. So, I mean, very few do I know that said, I grew up playing interviewee and candidate. This is what I've always wanted to do.
There's a joke in there about doctor versus interview and candidate, but we'll come back to that maybe on an uncorked segment, right? I think it's really interesting when we're talking about how we used to joke and say that the recruiting folks that we love the most are almost like they're from an island of misfit toys, right? And it's because there's such a diverse background and they all sort of fell together. I wonder what would happen to our dynamic if there truly was a formalized track, education track. You go to college, or you can kick out of college and immediately be a certified or to start being a recruiter. What do you think that would do to the space for us?
I think it would do miracles. One of the biggest things that is, to me, is a tragedy is how many people come into our field from that island of misfit toys every year and leave broken and just disappointed and damaged, and they leave and they're certainly not evangelists for the work that we do. So I think having a program where we could really build people up in a safe college environment where you're learning, you're allowed to make mistakes, you're getting the tutelage that you need, would provide the foundation not just for amazing recruiters to serve the industries that we serve now, but also that's the foundation for the leaders down the road. I mean, look at this. This is getting really, really gray. I don't have much longer, and I need somebody
preach.
I need somebody to step in and be those next leaders. And I think we have to start from the beginning on that.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, I don't know too many education programs or curriculum that are geared that way. But I would love to see more of those developed. I think a lot of organizations would get behind them, but I also think there is something to be said for the diversity of thought in that pool that we swim in now, right? Because we've got all these misfit toys, because we've got comedians and salespeople and people who were doing stuff we've never even heard of before they just found out they were amazing at recruiting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's an all or nothing, right? I think we, it's bring the best of both worlds together.
All right, good stuff. Well, look, Jim, we've always been a fan of you and the heart, the big heart that you put into the industry. And it's the insight and heart that we want to say thank you to today. We really appreciate you giving us a few moments and letting our listeners get to know you a bit more.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I love catching up with you. And it sounds like we need to have another conversation about some past experiences pretty soon.
Absolutely. My mind is blown. I can't believe that we have such a very similar kick into recruiting. Look, everybody out there that's listening, next week we've got an equally fun guest, Maren Hogan. She is the CEO of Red Branch Media. It's a marketing and advertising firm based in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, she and I are going to talk about a topic that isn't always easy to talk about, and that's why doing the right thing isn't always easy, and how it sometimes might not even feel right when you're running a business and you're trying to survive in some of these challenging times. So until then, we hope we'll see everyone online at cxr.work/talent talks. Make sure that you subscribe to the CXR podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, or just about anywhere else you listen to your favorite podcast. You can get those details at cxr.work/podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram at careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.